A poor girl holds a carton of milk in a grocery store and says to the cashier, "Can I pay later? My little brother is sick at home." The young billionaire standing behind her hears everything and makes a surprising decision. The chill of that fall morning felt like it could cut through skin. The grey sky created a melancholy atmosphere that mirrored the mood of the city. It was one of those days when most people preferred to stay home under warm blankets, but not everyone had that privilege. In the neighborhood grocery store, the employees moved slowly, as though the cold had frozen their movements. The place was almost empty, except for a few hurried customers who dashed in and out, escaping the biting wind whistling outside. Emily walked in alone, her small footsteps barely audible on the ceramic floor. She was only 5 years old, but her eyes held a seriousness that didn't belong to childhood. She wore a faded blue coat, far too big for her frail body, most likely inherited from someone else. Her brown hair was tied into 2 messy braids, as if arranged by inexperienced hands, perhaps her own. She headed straight to the dairy section, ignoring the colorful candy shelves that normally attract children her age. Her eyes searched for something specific, and when she found it, her face lit up briefly. She stood on tiptoe and reached for a carton of milk. She clutched it to her chest like a treasure, then walked toward the cashier. Only one register was open that morning. A middle-aged woman with deep under-eye circles and grey hair pinned in a tight bun was scanning items for a tall, serious-looking man. According to the name tag on his dark suit, his name was Alex. At 40, his face bore the marks of someone who had built a successful life, but carried a certain loneliness. Emily stood behind him, holding the milk with both hands. She was so quiet that Alex didn't notice her presence until the cashier finished ringing up his purchases. "That'll be $42.17, sir," the cashier said, in a monotone voice. While Alex retrieved his wallet, Emily stepped forward. Her voice, surprisingly clear for such a small child, broke the silence. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, extending the milk toward the cashier. "Can I pay later? My little brother is sick at home." The cashier looked at Emily with a mix of surprise and discomfort. "I'm sorry, sweetie, but we can't do that. Do you have any money?" Emily swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on the milk carton. "Not right now, but I promise I'll bring it. My mom said she'll get some money soon." There was something in her voice, a blend of desperation and dignity that made Alex pause. He turned around and truly saw Emily for the first time. A girl far too small to be on her own, shouldering responsibilities far too big for her fragile shoulders. "My brother is only 2, Emily continued, as though she needed to justify her request. "He's had a fever since yesterday." The cashier sighed, clearly torn between the store's rules and compassion. "I'm sorry, dear, but I can't." "I'll pay," Alex said, his deep voice surprising even himself. He hadn't planned on speaking, but the words slipped out before he could think. Emily lifted her eyes to him, startled. They were large brown eyes that seemed to take up half her thin face. She hadn't asked for his help or even noticed him until now. She had simply spoken, with an honesty that adults rarely show. "Add the milk to my total," Alex told the cashier, who quickly nodded. "You don't have to," Emily said, her pride bigger than her need. "I can come back another day." Alex crouched down to her level. Up close, he noticed the freckles across her small nose and the slight tremble of lips trying hard to stay firm. "It's okay," he said gently. "Sometimes all of us need a little help. When you can, you help someone else in return, all right?" For a moment, Emily just looked at him, as if assessing his sincerity. Then she slowly nodded. "I promise," she said, with the solemnity of someone making a sacred vow. Alex paid for his groceries and handed the milk to Emily, who held it as if it was something precious. "Thank you," she said, her voice now softer. "My brother will get better now." And before Alex could say anything else, she took off running, disappearing through the grocery store door. He stood there for a moment, a strange mix of emotions stirring inside him. There was something about that brief encounter, something about that child's voice, that had touched a part of him he believed long dormant. "That was a kind thing to do," the cashier remarked, interrupting his thoughts. There are many kids like her around here. Life's not easy in this neighborhood. Alex nodded absently, picking up his bags. Do you know her? Any idea where she lives? The woman shrugged. I've seen her a few times, always alone. I believe they live in that old building on Lincoln Street, you know? The one that's set to be demolished. Alex knew the place. A condemned building that should have been torn down years ago, yet it still stood, housing those with nowhere else to go. He walked out of the grocery store and glanced around, but Emily was already gone. The grey sky looked even heavier now, and the cold more intense. He headed to his luxury car, an odd sight in that humble neighborhood, and sat inside for a long moment before starting the engine. Something had changed that cold morning. A simple act, buying a carton of milk for an unknown little girl, had awakened something inside him. He didn't know it yet, but that seemingly insignificant moment would be the start of a profound transformation in his life. What was a carton of milk, after all? Almost nothing to him, but everything to that child and her sick brother. Driving back to his empty apartment, he couldn't get Emily's big, serious eyes out of his mind, nor the promise she had made with such solemnity. When you can, you help someone else. Alex couldn't imagine, at that moment, how those words would come back to him in ways that would change his life forever. Alex couldn't sleep. It was the third consecutive night he lay tossing and turning, the image of Emily's brown eyes appearing every time he closed his own. He glanced at the clock on the nightstand, 3:17 a.m. With a sigh, he got up. His apartment on the 20th floor offered a privileged view of the city. Lights flickered in the darkness like artificial stars. He rested his forehead against the cold window and watched the empty streets below. Somewhere out there, maybe not too far away, was Emily. Was she sleeping? Had she managed to help her sick brother? He poured himself a glass of water and sat on the black leather couch that had never really had visitors. Important contracts waited on the coffee table for his signature. Alex owned a real estate development firm. He bought land, erected buildings, sold dreams wrapped in concrete and glass. He was good at what he did. He was wealthy. He was respected. And he was completely alone. It hadn't always been that way. Many years ago, he had been a child too, a child who went hungry. The memory came unannounced. Alex closed his eyes and was transported 35 years into the past. He was 5. The fridge was empty again. Mom had gone out looking for work. I'll be right back, she promised. But now it was nighttime. His stomach hurt. In the cupboard, he found only a nearly empty box of cereal. He ate the last few flakes one by one to make them last longer. Milk. How he dreamed of having a glass of milk. At school, the other kids had milk every day. He watched, swallowing hard, making excuses whenever they offered. I already drank some at home. I don't really like it. I'm not hungry today. Small lies to hide a big shame. Alex opened his eyes, returning to the present. The silent apartment felt emptier now. How had he managed to forget that part of his life for so long? How had he buried that little boy so deep? He picked up his phone and opened the messaging app. In his contact list, there were few personal names, mostly business partners, lawyers, agents. A tightness filled his chest. Who would call him if they needed help at 3 in the morning? No one. When the sun finally rose, Alex was already dressed and ready. He grabbed a quick coffee and drove to the neighborhood of the grocery store. It was far too early for a visit, but he couldn't stay home anymore. He parked near the building mentioned by the cashier. The property on Lincoln Street was a 4-story structure with peeling paint and windows patched with cardboard. A faded sign announced its upcoming demolition. Future development. Lincoln Heights Residential, coming soon. Ironically, it was one of his own company's projects. Alex stayed in the car, watching. People started leaving the building. Workers, judging by their simple clothes and worn backpacks. Many walked to the nearby bus stop. Alex studied each face, each child, looking for Emily. What am I doing? He muttered to himself. He felt like a stalker, a strange man watching children. But he couldn't bring himself to leave. At 7:30, he finally saw her. Emily stepped out of the building holding the hand of a small boy. Her brother, he assumed. She was wearing the same faded blue coat, and the boy wore pajamas under a thin jacket. Both looked exhausted. Alex hesitated. He couldn't simply approach them. What would he say? "Hi, remember me? The guy from the milk?" That would sound strange, maybe even frightening. He watched as Emily and her brother walked to a small park. She helped him onto a bench and took something out of her bag, a package of crackers. She carefully shared them between the two of them. Alex felt a lump in his throat. This 5-year-old girl was caring for her brother like an adult. No grown-ups around. Where was their mother? He got out of the car and headed to a nearby bakery. He bought milk, bread, cheese, fruit. He felt nervous, like a teenager. What would he do next? Give it to them personally? Leave it at their door? While paying, he noticed a poster on the bakery wall. Volunteers needed. St. Joseph's Community Center, helping local families. An idea began to take shape. Returning to his car, he saw Emily and her brother still on the park bench. The little boy looked tired, resting his head on Emily's shoulder. She was stroking his hair with a tenderness that seemed beyond her years. He, too, had to grow up too fast. After his mom never came back, he ended up in an orphanage. Nights spent crying under a blanket, years learning not to rely on anyone, building walls, becoming strong, forgetting. Until one day he completely forgot that boy. He built a new life, became Alex the successful businessman. No one ever knew about the boy who went hungry. No one needed to know. But that carton of milk in the grocery store brought it all back. Emily's voice broke something inside him, a dam containing memories submerged for decades. Alex took a deep breath. He wouldn't approach Emily today. It would be invasive, frightening. But he also wouldn't leave. Now he knew where she lived. He could find a proper way to help. He picked up his phone and searched for the number of St. Joseph's Community Center. Maybe they'd know more about Emily's family and how he could help without overstepping. As he dialed, he glanced again at the park. Emily was now holding her brother in her lap, even though she was too small for that. He coughed a few times, a harsh sound Alex could hear, even from a distance. "That milk was for you, wasn't it, little guy?" Alex murmured. In that moment, something crystallized within him. It wasn't just about Emily or her sick brother. It was about the boy he once was, the boy no one helped, the boy who had to forget to survive. Alex made a silent promise, looking at Emily and her brother. This time, it would be different. This time, someone would be there. The building on Lincoln Street looked even more decrepit in the afternoon light. Alex parked his car on the corner, watching residents come and go. He had been there for almost an hour, hoping to see Emily again. He knew how it must look, a businessman loitering near a rundown apartment building, but he couldn't help it. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, wondering for the 100th time what he would say to her. He was on the verge of leaving when he finally spotted her. Emily left the building carrying a plastic bag larger than her arms. She looked even smaller outside, her petite figure contrasting with the decaying structure behind her. Alex watched as she walked determinedly to a dumpster at the corner, threw the bag in, and hurried back to the building. This was his chance. Alex got out of his car and walked quickly, reaching the building's entrance almost at the same time as she did. "Emily?" The girl turned, startled. For an instant, fear crossed her face, replaced by recognition. "You're the milkman," she said, a small smile tugging at her serious features. Alex felt unexpected relief that she remembered him. "That's right. My name is Alex." She nodded solemnly, as if recording the information. "I'm Emily, but you already know that." A brief silence fell between them, an awkward adult and a strangely self-possessed child. "How is your brother?" he finally asked. "Is he better?" Her expression changed. "Samuel's still sick. He's coughing a lot and he's really hot." She hesitated. "The milk helped, but he needs medicine." Alex felt his heart tighten. "Are your parents home? Maybe I can help." "It's just my mom, and she's sick too." Emily bit her lip. "She doesn't like me talking to strangers, but you're not exactly a stranger, right? You already helped us." "I don't want to cause trouble," Alex reassured her. But if you need help, I'd really like to offer it. Emily studied his face for a long moment, an unsettling intensity for someone so young. Then, as if coming to a decision, she held out her hand. Come on, I'll take you to my mom. Alex hesitated only for a second before taking her small, outstretched hand. Her trust was a gift and a responsibility. The inside of the building was even worse than the exterior suggested. The hallway lights were broken, and a damp, moldy smell permeated everything. Ignoring the clearly out-of-service elevator, Emily led him up the stairs. They climbed 4 flights, she hardly showing any fatigue while Alex realized how out of shape he was. "This is it," she announced, stopping in front of a door with the number 407 painted by hand. Without knocking, Emily turned the knob and walked in. "Mom? I brought someone, the man who bought milk for Samuel." The apartment was small, essentially one room divided by a makeshift partition. It was immaculately clean despite its evident poverty. A young woman stood up from the couch, where she had been sitting next to a sleeping boy. She was clearly once beautiful, but now looked exhausted and unwell. She couldn't have been older than 28, yet her eyes looked far beyond her years. "Emily," she whispered, shooting Alex a wary look. "What did I say about bringing strangers in?" "But Mom, he's not a stranger. He's the one I told you about, from the grocery store." The woman coughed, covering her mouth with an already used tissue. "I'm sorry, sir. My daughter sometimes—" Another cough interrupted her. "No need to apologize," Alex said quickly. "If anything, I should apologize for just showing up. I'm Alex Harrison." He realized his surname and appearance likely meant nothing here. A relief, in a way. In his business world, the name Harrison opened doors. Here, it was just a name. "Luciana Silva," she replied, still guarded. "What do you want?" Her directness was welcome. Alex decided to be equally frank. "I saw Emily at the grocery store a few days ago. She was trying to buy milk for your sick child." He gestured to the sleeping boy. "I paid for it but got worried. Today I came by and found her. I know it seems strange, but I'd like to help, if you'll let me." Luciana narrowed her eyes. "Why? What do you get out of this?" It was a fair question. In his world, nobody did anything without expecting something in return. "I was once in a situation like yours," he answered simply. "Not exactly the same, but I know what it's like to need help and have no one." The sincerity of that response seemed to surprise her. On the couch, Samuel, who must have been the boy, coughed and stirred restlessly. It was a worrying sound, a rough noise from such a small chest. "He needs a doctor," Alex observed. "I know," Luciana said with a mix of frustration and desperation. "We went to the emergency room 2 days ago, waited 5 hours for the doctor to say it was just a cold and send us home with cough syrup." Emily leaned against her mother. "Mum, Samuel's worse, and you are too." Luciana stroked her daughter's hair automatically, but her body tensed with another coughing fit. Alex noticed how she tried to muffle the sound, as if refusing to admit she was also ill. "Ms. Silva, Luciana," he corrected himself. "I have a friend who's a doctor. I can take you to see him right now. A private clinic. No cost to you." "We don't accept charity," she shot back immediately, though her voice trembled a little. Alex recognized that pride, the same that had kept him going in his worst moments. "It's not charity, it's—" He searched for the right words. "It's a helping hand, like the one nobody offered me when I needed it." Samuel started to cry, a weak sound interrupted by more coughing. Emily rushed to him, placing her small hand on his forehead. "Mom! He's burning up!" Luciana moved too quickly and became dizzy, stumbling. Alex instinctively reached out, steadying her. She was so light that she offered little resistance. "Please," Alex insisted, "let me help. At least let me take your son to the doctor." The conflict was visible on her face, fear of trusting a stranger against the desperate need to help her child. Samuel was crying louder now, the fever clearly high. Emily watched her mother, eyes pleading for a decision. "Fine," Luciana relented at last. "But just Samuel." "Mom," Emily interjected with surprising seriousness, "you're sick too. You haven't eaten properly in days." Alex noticed how Emily spoke, not like a worried child, but like a caretaker. How many times had this 5-year-old had to be the grown-up in the house? Emily's right, he said gently. You both need to be seen. Luciana still hesitated, but another coughing fit seemed to drain her resistance. She nodded silently. Alex called Dr. Martin while Luciana packed a small bag for Samuel. Emily, with startling efficiency, helped her mother, anticipating what was needed without asking. The clinic is about 20 minutes from here, Alex explained. Dr. Martin will wait for us, even though it's after normal hours. Why are you doing this? Luciana asked quietly, her voice low so Emily couldn't hear. No one does something like this without wanting something in return. Alex hesitated. How could he explain something he barely understood himself? When I was Emily's age, I went hungry. There was no one to help me. He paused. Seeing your daughter in that grocery store, asking for milk for her sick brother, something in me just woke up. Luciana's gaze softened slightly. I've spent years trusting no one. It's hard to believe someone just wants to help. I get it, Alex replied, and I'm not asking you to fully trust me. I'm just asking for a chance to help. Samuel began to stir, whimpering with fever. Emily comforted him as best she could. Doctor. Martin's clinic was modern yet cozy, quite different from crowded public hospitals. By the time they arrived, the place was nearly empty. Martin had arranged to see them after regular hours. Alex, it's been a while, greeted the doctor, a man in his 40s with prematurely grey hair and kind eyes. His smile softened when he saw the family Alex brought. How you must be Samuel, he said, crouching to the boy's level as he clung to his mother. I heard you're not feeling so great. Samuel hid his face against Luciana's neck, but Emily stepped forward. He's had a fever and cough for 4 days, she reported seriously, and it hurts here when he breathes. She pointed to her own chest. Doctor. Martin looked at Emily with genuine respect, without the usual adult condescension. Thank you for the information. You must be the older sister, right? Emily nodded proudly. Let's examine him, then, the doctor said, gesturing toward an exam room. Mum can come along, of course. Alex stayed in the waiting area with Emily, who immediately picked up a dinosaur magazine. You like dinosaurs? Alex asked, surprised. I like anything that's old, she replied without looking up. Things that existed before we were born, Alex smiled. Why is that? Emily thought for a moment, brow furrowing in concentration. Because it shows the world is big, bigger than our problems. Her answer left him speechless. How much time did this child spend thinking about things children shouldn't have to think about? After nearly an hour, Dr. Martin emerged with Luciana, who looked even paler under the clinic's fluorescent lights. Samuel has a severe respiratory infection, the doctor explained. He'll need IV antibiotics and monitoring. He looked at Luciana. And you need treatment too. Chronic bronchitis, significant anemia, signs of exhaustion and depression. I need to stay with my kids, Luciana protested weakly. Mom? Emily's voice sounded small now, reminding everyone of her true age. You're going to get better too, right? Luciana knelt with difficulty, hugging her daughter. I'll be fine, sweetheart. Don't worry. Doctor. Martin exchanged a meaningful look with Alex. Ideally, both mother and son should be admitted for a few days, he said. Samuel absolutely needs it. As for you, he nodded at Luciana, it's strongly recommended. What about Emily? Asked Luciana, clearly worried. I have no one to watch her. Alex stepped forward. I can look after Emily while you both recover. Seeing Luciana's hesitation, he added, or we can find another option if you prefer, maybe a neighbor or relative. Luciana shook her head. We have no one. She looked at her daughter, then at Alex. How can I trust my child to someone I hardly know? The question hung in the air. It was valid, more than valid. In her place, Alex would probably think the same thing. Emily, however, had her own opinion. Mom, Mr. Alex is good. He bought the milk for Samuel, remember? And now he brought us to the doctor. Sweetie, it's not that simple. You always say I should trust my instincts, Emily persisted, and my instincts say he's good. Luciana gave a faint smile. Using my own words against me, Dr. Martin intervened gently. If it helps, I can confirm I've known Alex for over 20 years. He's an honest man. He thought for a moment. And my wife could drop by regularly to check on Emily. Alex nodded. And you can call any time to speak to her. We can visit you both in the hospital every day. Luciana still looked exhausted, too drained to fight. She glanced at Samuel, sleeping restlessly in her arms, his breathing labored. Then at Emily, who watched her with those large, serious eyes. How long would we need to stay? For Samuel, at least 3 days, answered the doctor. For you, I'd recommend the same, possibly more, depending on how you respond to treatment. Another long moment of hesitation. Then Luciana looked directly at Alex. If anything happens to her, I'll protect Emily as if she were my own daughter, Alex promised solemnly. You have my word. Something in the firmness of his voice seemed finally to convince her. Luciana nodded slowly. All right, but I want to talk to her every day, and I want you both to visit. Of course, Alex agreed immediately. Every day. Admission procedures were surprisingly fast. Within an hour, Samuel was settled in the pediatric wing, already receiving IV medication. Luciana was taken to another floor, reluctant to leave her son, but eventually persuaded by Dr. Martin's insistence that her own recovery was vital. Before being taken to her room, Luciana said goodbye to Emily in private. Alex stood at a distance, respecting their moment. But he could see the intensity of the embrace, the whispered words, the controlled tears of both. When they finally separated, Emily walked over to Alex with renewed determination. Mom said I have to be brave, she announced, and that I need to show you how I like my sandwich and which story I need to hear before I go to sleep. Alex smiled, feeling a strange mix of emotions. I'll make notes on everything. Dr. Martin placed a hand on Alex's shoulder. They're in good hands now, don't worry. Thank you, Martin, really. Don't thank me, I'm just glad to see you caring for someone like this. It's been a while since I saw that spark in your eyes. Alex wasn't sure how to respond. Instead, he turned to Emily. Ready to go? Emily nodded, but, before taking his hand, looked at the doctor. You're going to take good care of my mom and brother, right? Dr. Martin crouched again, looking into her eyes. I promise I'll do everything I can so they get better quickly. She considered his answer for a moment, then nodded, apparently satisfied. She took Alex's hand and together they headed for the exit. In the car, as they left the hospital, Emily was quiet, gazing out the window. Alex respected her space, understanding that despite her maturity, she was still a 5-year-old who had just been separated from her mother and brother for the first time. Everything will be okay, Emily, he finally said, hoping to comfort her. She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the city lights. I know, she replied with a confidence that surprised him. You showed up at the grocery store right when we needed you, and you showed up again now. Good things always come back. My mom taught me that. Alex felt a knot in his throat. In his 40 years, with all his wealth and success, he was getting a lesson in faith from a 5-year-old child. Your mom is a very wise woman, he managed to say. Emily smiled, maybe the first real childlike smile he had seen from her. Yes, she is. And when she gets better, you'll see. Driving through the city streets toward his luxurious apartment, with a child he had just met in the passenger seat, Alex realized his life would never be the same. And surprisingly, he wasn't frightened by the idea at all. The building was only a few blocks from the hospital, on a quiet middle-class street. It wasn't luxurious, but it was worlds better than the condemned place they had lived before. It had 3 bedrooms, a spacious living room, a proper kitchen, and, most important for Luciana, a bathroom without leaks. Alex turned the key in the lock and opened the door, watching Luciana, Emily, and Samuel's reactions. It was a significant moment, the first step in a new chapter for that family, and though he wouldn't admit it yet, for him as well. It's not very large, he said, trying to manage expectations, but I thought it would be comfortable for you. Luciana entered slowly, still pale from her hospital stay. It had been 5 days since Samuel was discharged, and only 2 since she herself was released. The medication was helping, but full recovery would take time. It's beautiful, she murmured, touching the wall as though she couldn't believe it was real. Emily, on the other hand, was more suspicious than amazed. She held her brother's hand firmly, scanning the place as if looking for traps. "Can we go in, Mom?" she asked in a quiet voice. "Of course you can," Alex answered, setting down the few bags they had. "This is your home now." The word home seemed to awaken something in Emily. Her big eyes scanned the space again, this time with more curiosity and less suspicion. "All of this is ours?" she asked, pointing at the couch, the television, the dining table. Alex nodded. "Everything. I rented it furnished so you wouldn't have to worry about anything." Samuel, unlike his sister, showed no hesitation. At 2 years old, his memory of their old place was already fading. With the typical energy of his age, he let go of Emily's hand and ran around the living room, his footsteps echoing on the wood floor. "Samuel, be careful," Luciana warned, though without her usual energy. Her voice still carried the fatigue of her illness. "Let him explore," Alex said gently. "Kids need that." Something about that comment seemed to strike a chord in Luciana. She looked at Alex for a moment, as if seeing something new in his face. "Do you have children, Alex?" The question caught him off guard. "No, never married." "You seem to understand a lot about them." Alex shrugged, a bit uncomfortable. "Maybe I just remember what it's like to be a kid." The answer satisfied her for the time being. Samuel was now running toward one of the bedrooms, and Emily, after a quick glance at her mother for permission, followed him. "I can't believe this is happening," Luciana said, sinking onto the couch as though her legs had suddenly given out. "A month ago we were—" "No need to talk about that now," Alex said softly. "You need to rest, recover your health. The rest will follow." "The rest," she repeated, looking around. "Rent, bills, my job. It's all taken care of for now, until you get settled. And as for work, once you're fully recovered, we can figure something out." "I can't accept so much, Alex." "You've already done more than anyone would." He sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "Luciana, we've talked about this. It's not charity. It's a chance to start over. Remember what Dr. Martin said. You and Samuel need stability to fully recover." Before she could reply, Emily returned to the living room, her eyes wide. "There's a bed for each of us," she announced, as though she'd discovered a treasure. "And Samuel already chose the room with the big window." Alex smiled. "Actually, I thought that would be your room, Emily. It has a desk for when you start school." The mention of school made Emily's eyes light up briefly, before a shadow of worry crossed them. "But who's going to take care of Samuel and Mom while I'm at school?" "Emily," Luciana began, but was interrupted by a coughing spell. "Let's take one step at a time," Alex said. "For now, let's just settle in, okay? By the way, we still need to bring the groceries in from the car." Emily immediately volunteered to help. Carrying bags was nothing new to her. It was a responsibility she had long accepted as part of life. Alex watched as she lugged packages almost her own size, refusing to make just one trip when she could do 2 and be more useful. Their first dinner in the new apartment had a special taste. Alex brought food from a nearby restaurant, but in the following nights, Luciana insisted on cooking, determined to contribute in some way. 3 days after moving in, while Luciana rested and Samuel napped, Alex found Emily meticulously arranging the few toys he'd brought over. "What are you doing?" he asked, watching her line up colorful blocks in a specific sequence. "Storing them," she answered simply, "so they'll last longer." Alex felt the now familiar twinge in his chest. Emily treated toys like scarce resources that had to be preserved, not objects of fun. "You know," he said, sitting on the floor next to her, "these blocks are meant to be played with, to build things, knock them down, and build them again." Emily gave him a wary look. "But if you play too much, they break. And if you don't play with them, what's the point?" She seemed genuinely puzzled by his question, her small forehead creased in thought. "May I show you how I used to play when I was a kid?" Alex offered. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. Alex began stacking the blocks into a deliberately unstable tower. "Now comes the fun part," he said, winking. "We see how long it'll stay up." "But it'll fall," Emily protested. "Exactly. That's the fun." When the tower finally collapsed with a satisfying crash, Samuel woke up and came running, drawn by the noise. Instead of scolding them, he joined in. Soon, the three of them were building and toppling increasingly elaborate towers, filling the apartment with laughter. Luciana found them like that when she came out of the bedroom. Alex lying on the floor, the children practically on top of him, surrounded by scattered blocks and near-constant laughter. "What happened here?" she asked. No reproach in her voice, just surprise. "We're demolishing towers," Samuel declared, his small voice full of excitement. "It's fun, Mom," Emily added, as though apologizing for enjoying herself. Alex stood feeling slightly embarrassed. "Sorry about the mess. I guess we got carried away." Luciana smiled, a smile that lit up her tired face and revealed the young woman behind the worries. "I don't remember the last time I heard so much laughter in our home." She paused, correcting herself. "I mean in any home of ours." The following weeks established a routine. Alex dropped by the apartment almost every day, usually in the evening after work, bringing books, groceries, sometimes a new toy or a board game. Luciana was slowly improving, though she still tired easily. Samuel, with the resilience typical of small children, had almost completely recovered. Emily continued to amaze Alex with her maturity. Though she was beginning to act more like a child during play, she slipped back into mini-adult mode whenever she sensed her mother needed help. One Saturday afternoon, Alex arrived earlier than usual, carrying a bag of children's books. He found Emily standing on a stool in the kitchen, washing the lunch dishes. "Where's your mom?" he asked, setting the books on the table. "She's lying down." The cough came back a bit. Emily dried a plate with meticulous care. "Samuel's with her." Alex approached, taking the dish towel from her hands. "I'll finish this. Why don't you check out the books I brought?" Emily hesitated, clearly torn between duty and temptation. "I need to finish first." "Emily," Alex said, crouching to her eye level. "I know you want to help your mom, it's admirable, but you also need time to be a kid." "Being a kid doesn't help anyone," she replied, with a seriousness that broke his heart. "That's not true. When you laugh, your mom is happy. When you play with Samuel, he learns new things. Being a kid is your job right now." Emily considered his words with the same gravity she gave everything. "Can I read one book and then finish the dishes?" Alex smiled. "How about I finish the dishes while you read, and then we can read together with Samuel?" The deal struck. Emily hopped down from the stool and ran off to explore the new books. Alex watched her for a moment, then returned to the dishes. There was something about that little family that filled a void he hadn't even realized existed. "You need to go to school, Emily." Alex made this declaration during dinner, nearly a month after they had moved in. Luciana froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Samuel, oblivious to the sudden tension, continued smearing mashed potatoes across his plate. "I can't," Emily finally replied. "I have to take care of Samuel and help Mom." "Your mom is much better now," Alex reasoned gently, "and we can hire someone to help during the day." "We don't need help," Emily insisted. "I can do it." Luciana set her fork down. "Sweetheart, Alex is right. You need to go to school." Emily looked at her mother, feeling betrayed. "But you said you'd teach me at home until Samuel was older." "That was before," Luciana explained. "We're in better circumstances now." She glanced at Alex, gratitude evident in her eyes. "You're too smart to stay home. You need to learn and meet other kids." "I don't want to meet other kids," Emily said softly. "They'll laugh at me." Alex and Luciana exchanged worried looks. This was the first time Emily had expressed a typically childish fear. "Why do you think they'll laugh?" Luciana asked. Emily shrugged. "Because of my clothes. Because of how I talk." Once in the park, a girl laughed because I didn't know the name of the cartoon on TV. Alex felt a protective surge so intense it surprised him. He wanted to shield Emily from anything that could hurt her, physically or emotionally. "Emily," he said, choosing his words carefully, "you are an amazing girl. You're smart, brave, and kind. Any kid would be lucky to have you as a friend. And about clothes, Luciana added, we can buy new ones, and you can watch all the cartoons you want to learn about them. Emily still looked uncertain. What if I don't know the things the other kids know? You'll learn, Alex assured her. And I bet you know plenty of things they don't. A small smile formed on Emily's serious face, like how to take care of a baby and make porridge without burning it. Exactly, Alex laughed. Besides, we'll be with you every step of the way. We'll visit the school together, buy school supplies, whatever you need. Together? Emily glanced from Alex to her mother. Are you too, Alex? The question hung in the air, loaded with meaning. It wasn't just about going to school, but about belonging, being part of a family. Of course I will, he said, feeling an indescribable rush of emotion. I'll be there whenever you need me. That was the moment Samuel chose to knock his juice cup over, breaking the emotional intensity. While they all moved to clean up, Alex noticed Luciana watching him with an expression he hadn't seen before. An amalgam of gratitude, affection, and something else not yet spoken. Later, after the children were in bed, Alex was preparing to leave when Luciana stopped him at the door. Thank you, she said simply. Not just for the apartment, the medical treatment or the material things, but for bringing life back to the kids, especially Emily. I didn't do anything extraordinary, he replied, uncomfortable with her thanks. Just what anyone would do. Luciana shook her head. We both know that's not true. What you did, what you're doing, changed our lives. For a moment, they stood in silence, only a few inches apart, separated by invisible barriers neither quite knew how to dismantle. You've become important to them, Luciana continued. To us. Her words hung between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Alex felt an urge to close that distance, but he held back. It was too soon, and there was too much at stake. You're important to me too, he finally admitted, more than I ever thought possible. They said goodnight with the promise that he'd return the next day to begin searching for a school for Emily, driving back to his own apartment, which now seemed strangely empty. Alex acknowledged a truth that had been forming for weeks. He was no longer just a benefactor, a kind stranger helping a family in need. Without noticing, he had become part of that family, and, more surprising still, that family had become part of him. The building was only a few blocks from the hospital, on a calm, middle-class street. It wasn't luxurious, but infinitely better than the condemned one where they had lived before. It had 3 bedrooms, a spacious living room, a well-equipped kitchen, and most importantly for Luciana, a bathroom without leaks. Alex turned the key in the lock and opened the door, watching Luciana, Emily, and Samuel's expressions. It was an important moment, the first step in a new chapter for that family and, though he wouldn't admit it yet, for him too. It's not very big, he said, trying to manage expectations, but I thought it'd be comfortable for you. Luciana stepped in slowly, still pale from her hospital stay. It had been 5 days since Samuel was discharged, and only 2 since she had been. The medication was working, but full recovery would take time. It's beautiful, she murmured, touching the wall as if she couldn't believe it was real. Emily, however, looked more suspicious than astonished. Holding Samuel's hand tight, she scanned the environment like someone expecting hidden traps. Can we come in, Mom? She asked softly. Of course, Alex said, placing the few bags they had on the floor. This is your home now. The word home seemed to trigger something in Emily. Her big eyes roamed the space again, this time with less suspicion and more curiosity. All this is ours, she asked, pointing at the couch, the TV, the dining table. Alex nodded. Everything. I rented it furnished so you wouldn't have to worry about anything. Samuel, unlike his sister, showed no hesitation. Being only 2, his memory no longer held onto the place they had lived before. With typical toddler impulsiveness, he released Emily's hand and ran across the living room, his steps echoing on the wooden floor. Samuel, be careful, Luciana cautioned, though without her usual energy. Her voice still bore the exhaustion of her illness. Let him explore, Alex said gently. Kids need that. The comment seemed to reveal something new to Luciana. She looked at Alex for a moment, as though really seeing him. "Do you have kids, Alex?" The question caught him by surprise. "No. I've never been married." "You seem to understand them well." Alex shrugged, uncomfortable. "Maybe I just remember what it's like to be a child." She seemed satisfied with that for the moment. Samuel ran off to one of the bedrooms, and Emily, after a quick glance at her mom, followed him. "I can't believe this is happening," Luciana said, sitting on the couch as if her legs had given out. "A month ago, we were—" "You don't have to talk about that now," Alex said gently. "You need rest. Recover your health. The rest will follow." "The rest?" she echoed, looking around. "Rent, bills, my job. It's all sorted until you settle in. And about work. Once you've fully recovered, we can figure it out. I can't accept so much, Alex. You've already done more than anyone would." He sat beside her, maintaining a respectful distance. "Luciana, we've talked about this. It's not charity, it's an opportunity to start over. Remember what Dr. Martin said. You and Samuel need stability to recover fully." Before she could respond, Emily came back to the living room, eyes wide. "There's a bed for each of us," she announced, as though she'd found a treasure. "And Samuel already chose the room with the big window." Alex smiled. "Actually, I thought that could be your room, Emily. There's a desk in there for when you start school." The mention of school made Emily's eyes light up for a second, before a hint of worry dimmed them. "But who's going to take care of Samuel and Mom when I'm at school?" "Emily," Luciana began, but was stopped by another coughing fit. "One step at a time," Alex said. "For now, let's just get settled, okay? Besides, we still need to bring in the groceries from the car." Emily immediately volunteered. Carrying bags was second nature to her, a duty she had long accepted. Alex watched her carry bundles nearly her own size, refusing to make fewer trips when she could do more. Their first dinner in the new apartment was special. Alex brought food from a local restaurant, but in the following days, Luciana insisted on cooking, wanting to contribute somehow. 3 days after moving in, while Luciana was resting and Samuel was napping, Alex found Emily meticulously organizing the few toys he had brought. "What are you doing?" he asked, seeing her arrange colorful blocks in a certain sequence. "I'm putting them away," she answered simply, "so they'll last longer." Alex felt that familiar ache in his chest. Emily treated toys like precious, limited supplies, not items meant for fun. "You know," he said, sitting on the floor beside her, "these blocks are meant to be played with, to build all kinds of things. Knock them down, build them again." Emily eyed him skeptically. "But if you play a lot, they break. And if you don't play with them, what's the point?" She seemed genuinely perplexed, her brow furrowed in thought. "May I show you how I used to play when I was your age?" Alex offered. After a moment, she nodded. Alex began building an intentionally wobbly tower. "Now for the fun part," he said, giving her a playful wink. "Let's see how long it stays up." "But it'll fall," Emily protested. "Exactly. That's where the fun is." When the tower finally collapsed with a satisfying crash, Samuel awoke and came running, drawn by the noise. Rather than scold them, he eagerly joined in. Soon, all three were building and toppling towers, laughter echoing throughout the apartment. Luciana found them this way upon leaving the bedroom. Alex sprawled on the floor, the children practically climbing on him, blocks scattered everywhere, and laughter that wouldn't stop. "What happened here?" she asked, though there was no reprimand in her voice, just surprise. "We're knocking down towers," Samuel announced gleefully. "It's fun, Mom," Emily added, as though apologizing for having a good time. Alex stood slightly embarrassed. "Sorry about the mess." "I guess we got carried away," Luciana smiled, a warmth lighting up her weary face, revealing the young woman beneath the burdens. "I can't recall the last time I heard such laughter in any of our homes." The following weeks established a comfortable routine. Alex would visit most evenings after work, sometimes bringing books, groceries, a new toy, or a board game. Luciana recovered slowly, still tiring easily, while Samuel, with typical toddler resilience, was almost fully healed. Emily continued to surprise Alex with her responsibility. Though she played more like a child when he was around, She instantly resumed her mini-adult role whenever her mother needed assistance. One Saturday, Alex arrived earlier than usual with a bag of children's books. He found Emily standing on a stool in the kitchen, washing lunchtime dishes. "Where's your mom?" he asked, placing the books on the table. "She's lying down." The cough came back a bit, Emily replied, carefully drying a plate. "Samuel's with her." Alex stepped closer, took the dish towel from her, and said, "I'll finish up. Why don't you check out the books I brought?" Emily hesitated, torn between duty and curiosity. "I need to finish first." "Emily," Alex said, crouching to her level, "I know you want to help your mom, and that's admirable. But you need time to be a kid, too." "Being a kid doesn't help anyone," she replied, her serious tone breaking his heart. "That's not true. When you laugh, your mom feels better. When you play with Samuel, he learns new things. Being a kid is your job right now." Emily weighed his words with the same gravity she gave all things. "Can I read one book and then finish washing?" Alex grinned. "How about I wash while you read, and then we can read together for Samuel?" Deal struck. Emily hopped off the stool and ran to the books. Alex watched her briefly before turning back to the dishes. Something about this small family filled a void he hadn't realized he had. "You need to go to school, Emily." Alex made this statement during dinner nearly a month after she'd moved in. Luciana froze mid-bite. Samuel, unaware of the tension, continued playing with his mashed potatoes. "I can't," Emily replied after a moment. "I have to help take care of Samuel and Mom." "Your Mom's much better now," Alex reasoned gently, "and we can hire someone to help during the day." "We don't need help," Emily insisted. "I can do it." Luciana put down her fork. "Sweetheart, Alex is right. You need to go to school." Emily looked at her mother, hurt. "But you said you'd teach me at home until Samuel was older." "That was before," Luciana explained. "Things are better now." She glanced at Alex with silent gratitude in her eyes. "You're too smart to stay home. You need to learn and meet other kids." "I don't want to meet other kids," Emily said, her voice small. "They'll laugh at me." Alex and Luciana exchanged worried looks. This was the first time Emily had expressed a normal child's anxiety. "Why would they laugh?" Luciana asked. Emily shrugged. "My clothes. How I talk." One time at the park, a girl laughed because I didn't know the name of some TV cartoon. Alex felt a fierce protective instinct surge within him, surprising even himself. He wanted to shield her from any pain, physical or emotional. "Emily," he said, choosing each word, "you're an incredible girl, smart, brave, and kind. Any kid should feel lucky to be your friend." "And about clothes," Luciana added, "we can buy some new ones, and you can watch all the shows you want to learn about them." Emily still looked uncertain. "What if I don't know the stuff other kids know?" "You'll learn," Alex reassured her. "I bet you know plenty that they don't." A small smile finally curved Emily's lips. "Like how to take care of a toddler and cook porridge without burning it." "Exactly," Alex laughed. "And we'll be with you every step of the way. We'll go see the school together, shop for supplies, anything you need." "Together?" Emily looked from her mother to Alex. "You too, Alex?" The question hovered, carrying deeper significance than just starting school. It was about belonging, about being a family. "Of course," he said, feeling an unnameable emotion well up inside him. "I'll be there whenever you need me." Samuel chose that moment to tip over his cup of juice, breaking the tension. As they hurried to clean up, Alex noticed Luciana looking at him with an expression that blended gratitude, affection, and something unspoken. Later, after the children were in bed, Alex prepared to leave, but Luciana stopped him at the door. "Thank you," she said simply, "not just for the apartment, or the medical care or material things, but for bringing life back to the kids, especially Emily." "I haven't done anything extraordinary," he said, feeling uncomfortable at her appreciation. "Just what anyone would do." She shook her head. "We both know that's not true. What you did and are still doing has changed our lives." For a moment, they stood there, mere inches apart, separated only by invisible barriers they hadn't yet learned to cross. "You've become important to them," she continued. "To us." Her words hung in the air, full of unspoken possibilities. Alex felt an urge to close the gap between them, but he held himself back. It was too soon, there was too much at stake. "You're important to me too," he finally admitted. "More than I ever expected." They said their goodbyes, with the promise that he'd return the next day so they could look for a school for Emily. Driving back to his own place, which now felt strangely empty and impersonal, Alex realized a truth that had been forming for weeks. He was no longer merely a good Samaritan helping a family in need. Unknowingly, he had become part of that family. And even more surprising, that family had become part of him. Fall progressed, and with it came a quiet transformation in Alex's life. Each day he spent taking Emily to school or visiting Luciana and the kids in their modest apartment. His eyes opened to a reality that had always been there, but which he'd never truly seen. It was on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday, waiting for Emily at the school gate, that Alex noticed a young woman with 2 small children. She wore a mended coat and worn-out shoes, but the children had neatly pressed uniforms. The older child, perhaps 7, was also carrying her younger sibling's backpack. She had that same look Alex now recognized, the look of a child forced to grow up too fast. "That's Carla and her kids," commented Emily's teacher, Mrs. Winters, a kindly woman in her 60s who joined him at the gate. "They're in a tough spot, but she tries so hard to keep them in school." "I know that look," Alex murmured, almost to himself. "What look?" "The one where she's carrying the world on her shoulders." Mrs. Winters regarded him with renewed interest. "Most people don't notice." "I didn't either until I met Emily," Mrs. Winters sighed. "I have at least 5 kids like that in my class, each with their own story, hunger, violence, abandonment. They do what they can to hide it, but a perceptive teacher knows." Something stirred within Alex. "What happens to them?" "Some manage to get help. Most—" She shrugged. "The system fails them. It always has." That night, Alex couldn't sleep. Mrs. Winters's words echoed in his mind, mingling with his own childhood memories and Luciana's stories of struggle. How many Emilys were out there? How many children carried adult responsibilities? How many went unnoticed? The next morning, he called the teacher. "I'd like to talk more about those kids you mentioned, about how we can help." The small coffee shop near the school became their meeting spot. Mrs. Winters, "Please, call me Elaine," brought not just stories, but also a determination that surprised Alex. "For years, I've tried to start a support program," she explained, stirring her tea. "But I always run into red tape, lack of funding, lack of interest." "What kind of program?" "Something simple. A place where these kids can go after school, get a hot meal, help with homework, maybe a shoulder to cry on when needed." She smiled, a bit self-conscious. "It might not sound like much, but it would make a huge difference." Alex thought of Emily, of how she soaked up every book he gave her, every moment of attention, every chance just to be a kid. "What if the resources were available?" he asked. "What exactly would we need?" Elaine's eyes lit up. "Are you serious?" "Completely." "Doctor." Martin listened to Alex's proposal attentively, twirling a pen between his fingers. "A community center for families in vulnerable situations," he summarized after Alex finished. "Basic medical assistance, educational support, legal guidance." "Exactly. Something that makes a real difference, not just a temporary fix," the doctor smiled. "You know, I always suspected you had a bigger heart than you let on." Alex looked away, as uncomfortable with the praise. "It just makes sense, you know." "Yes, it does. And I can help. I know colleagues willing to donate a few hours a week, pediatricians, general practitioners, even a dentist." "That would be perfect," Alex said, feeling an excitement he hadn't felt in years. "But I want this to stay low profile. I don't want any spotlight on it." Martin nodded in understanding. "You're not looking to show off, but to make a difference." "Exactly." The building was modest, an old store turned into a community space. Nothing fancy or flashy, that was the point. Alex bought the property through a newly created foundation, distancing his own name from the project. He didn't want recognition. He wanted results. Luciana was the first to visit, while Emily was at school and Samuel in his new daycare. "It's perfect," she said. walking through the freshly painted space. "But I don't understand why you want my opinion." Alex hesitated. "Because you understand. You've lived it. You know what really makes a difference, not just what looks good on paper. And you want me to help? If you want to, if you can, your experience would be invaluable." Luciana walked over to the window, looking at the busy street outside. "I never imagined I could contribute to something like this. I was always the one who needed help, never the one who could offer it." "That's exactly why your voice is so important," Alex insisted. "You know what it's like to be on the other side. You know what people really need to hear." She turned, her gaze intense in a new way. "Yes, I do." At the opening was discreet. Not even a sign out front, just word of mouth among teachers, social workers, and carefully chosen volunteers. "New Dawn Community Center," read the simple sign on the door. Inside were tables for study, a small kitchen, a basic medical office, and a playroom for young children. On the first day, only 2 families showed up, a young mother with an autistic child seeking guidance, and an unemployed father trying to keep his daughters in school while looking for work. Elaine Winters greeted them with hot tea and homemade cookies. Dr. Martin assessed the autistic child, suggesting affordable therapies. A volunteer lawyer explained the father's legal rights. And Luciana just sat with them, listened, shared her own story. "I thought I was alone," the young mother said, eyes brimming with tears. "I never imagined anyone would understand." "We're never really alone," Luciana replied, holding her hand. "We just need to find the right people," Alex observed from the sidelines, preferring to stay in the background. There was a dignity to this place he didn't want to disrupt with his presence. Mutual recognition among people who understood each other's struggles. In the following weeks, visitors increased slowly, one family at a time. They weren't just seeking material help, Alex realized, but also something more intangible. The feeling they weren't forgotten, that their voices mattered. Elaine organized tutoring and homework clubs. Dr. Martin and his colleagues offered free checkups once a week. Lawyers, nutritionists, and psychologists, an expanding network of professionals, each donated a few hours of their time. And at the heart of it all was Luciana. The shy, reserved woman Alex met months ago became a different person at the center. She spoke with authority, empathy, and knew each family by name, understood each hardship. "You have a gift," Alex remarked one night as they closed up. "A real gift for connecting with people?" Luciana smiled, one free of the shame and fear she once carried. "I guess I just see myself in them. And I know sometimes all we need is someone who truly listens." Alex nodded thoughtfully. "Voices nobody was hearing." "What?" "That's what we're doing here, listening to people whose voices have always been ignored." Luciana stopped what she was doing and looked at him with an indescribable expression. "Including yours." Alex's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "You had a voice nobody heard, too, that hungry little boy who was abandoned. Now we're hearing him as well." Her words hit him like a bolt of understanding. She was right. In helping these families, these children, he was also healing the child within himself who had been hurt for so long. Locking the center's door that evening, Alex gazed at the quiet street and felt something new growing inside him. Not just the desire to help, but the realization that by doing so, he was helping himself. The New Dawn Community Center remained small and largely unknown in the city at large. There were no major sponsors or corporate logos on its walls, no sign with Alex's name. Just as he wanted, an honest space, born from genuine understanding that sometimes all a person needs is to be truly seen and heard. And so, quietly, something started to change, one family at a time, one voice at a time. Alex's office was on the 30th floor of a glass building in the financial district. From up there, the city looked small and orderly, a neat collection of structures, so different from the messy, unpredictable reality on the ground. "This is the opportunity of your career, Alex," insisted Philip Weber, the firm's majority partner. "Dubai is booming, and the Harbour Gardens project would be the biggest contract we've ever had." Alex looked at the presentation projected on the wall, an impressive digital model of luxurious skyscrapers by the sea, It was a multi-billion-dollar project that could catapult his already successful firm to global prominence. "Would I need to move there?" he asked, though he knew the answer. "For at least 2 years," Philip confirmed. "Maybe 3. It's essential for you to lead it in person. The investors specifically asked for you." Alex nodded mechanically. 2 years, maybe 3, in another continent. "When do they need an answer?" "Yesterday," Philip joked, not noticing Alex's tension. "But I managed to stall for 2 weeks. Don't disappoint me, Harrison. You built this reputation. Now's the time to take it to the next level." After Philip left, Alex remained motionless, staring at the city below. Somewhere out there was the small apartment where Luciana, Emily, and Samuel lived. Somewhere else was the community center that was beginning to thrive. And now Dubai. Luxury, prestige, everything he'd ever wanted. Right. "You're quiet today," Luciana observed while serving dinner. "Did something happen?" Alex tried to smile but couldn't fool even himself. "Just tired. Long day at work." Emily, now almost 6½, watched Alex from across the table. Since attending school, she had learned not just to read books but to read people. Something in her eyes hinted she didn't believe his excuse. "You look like I do, when I have to choose between 2 things I really want," she noted, surprising the adults with her perception. "Is it that obvious?" Alex tried to joke, but his voice sounded weak. "So you barely talked to Samuel, and he showed you his new drawing 3 times, Emily pointed out with impeccable logic. The 3-year-old, sensing he was being mentioned, held up his crayon drawing again. "Look, Alex, it's a dragon butterfly." Alex felt a wave of guilt. "Sorry, buddy, that's an awesome dragon butterfly." He turned to Luciana and Emily. "You're right. I'm a bit distracted." "Do you want to talk about it?" Luciana offered, concern in her eyes that tightened Alex's chest. "No, it's nothing important," he lied. "Just some decisions at work." Luciana only nodded, but Alex knew she didn't believe him. Over the past months, they'd developed a connection that often didn't require words. Dinner continued, with Samuel dominating the conversation by describing his day at daycare. But Alex could feel both Luciana and Emily's worried gazes on him. The next few days were a lesson in ambivalence. By day, Alex sat through meetings about Dubai, absorbing details, asking technical questions, performing as the dedicated professional he'd always been. By night, he dropped in on Luciana and the children, or visited the community center, where more and more families found help. 2 worlds colliding, 2 versions of himself in conflict. "You look like a ghost," Dr. Martin commented during a quick coffee break at the hospital. "What's going on?" Alex explained the situation in a neutral tone, as though it were just another business decision. "I see," said the doctor. "What's stopping you from accepting? It sounds like the opportunity you've always wanted." "It is what I always wanted," Alex admitted, "or at least what I thought I wanted." Martin waited, giving him space to continue. 6 months ago I would have jumped at it," Alex went on, fiddling with his coffee cup. "Now I can't imagine spending 2 years without seeing Emily learn to read a whole book on her own, or missing Samuel's first day of preschool." He paused. "Or not being around if Luciana needs me." "Sounds like you've already made up your mind," Martin observed. "But it's the biggest project of my career," Alex argued more to himself than to his friend. "It's what I've worked for my whole life." "Are you sure about that?" Martin asked, kindly but directly. "Or have you been working all your life to fill a void that you've now found another way to fill?" Alex had no answer. That night, after helping Samuel to bed and guiding Emily through her homework, Alex and Luciana sat on the apartment's small balcony. Silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken words. "You're leaving, aren't you?" Luciana said calmly. No accusation in her tone. Alex turned to her, startled. "How? Emily isn't the only one who can read people." She smiled sadly. "You've been distant, worried. You look at us like you're trying to memorize every detail." Alex sighed. "I got an offer to lead a project in Dubai. It'd be 2 years, maybe more." Luciana nodded, her expression a mask of composure. "Sounds like a big opportunity." "It is. The pinnacle of my career." "I'm happy for you," she said. And Alex knew she was sincere despite the sadness in her eyes. "I haven't accepted yet," he hurried to say. "I'm thinking it through. I see. More silence, heavier this time. You'd be fine, Alex finally said. The apartment is paid up for 3 years. The center has enough volunteers now. You have your job. The kids are stable. He was rattling off facts, trying to reassure both himself and her. We'd survive, Luciana agreed quietly. We've survived worse. Her words, though not accusing, hit Alex hard. Survive. Was that all he offered? After everything? Merely survival. What do you want me to do? He asked in a near whisper. Luciana gently touched his arm. Alex, this is your decision. I won't ask you to stay, and I won't blame you if you leave. You've already done more for us than we ever dreamed. But? He sensed there was more, but maybe the real question isn't what you owe us, but what you owe yourself. She held his gaze. What really matters to you now? Alex couldn't answer. Or maybe he could, but wasn't ready to admit it. That night, driving back to his apartment, the city lights blurred through the windshield. 2 images competed in his mind. The dazzling towers of Dubai and all they symbolized, and the memory of Emily's smile while conquering a new word, of Samuel's spontaneous hug, of Luciana's understanding glance. In the grand scheme of things, which mattered more? Which would define a life well lived? He didn't know the answer yet, but for the first time, he was asking the right questions. Sunday dawned with an exceptionally blue sky, as if the universe itself decided to offer a perfect day. Alex arrived at Luciana's apartment early, carrying a picnic basket and a brightly colored ball he had bought just for Samuel. "Park!" the little boy shouted upon seeing Alex, bouncing up and down with the boundless energy of a 3-year-old. "We're going to the park now." Emily, more reserved as always, simply smiled, but her eyes shone with a rare kind of excitement. She wore a new blue dress Luciana had bought the week before, her first new piece of clothing in a long time. "Calm down, Samuel," Luciana laughed, trying to keep him still while tying his shoes. "The park's not going anywhere." Alex observed the scene with a tight feeling in his chest. In recent days, every moment with them seemed more intense, as if he were trying to soak up every detail. The deadline for his decision about Dubai was approaching, and he still couldn't imagine which path he'd choose. "I brought sandwiches and juice," he announced, lifting the basket. "And a chocolate cake." "Chocolate," Samuel cheered, as though it were the greatest news in the world. Emily came over to help carry things. "Can I take something?" "You can take this." Alex handed her a small wrapped package. "But don't open it until we get to the park." Emily's eyes widened. "A present? Why?" "It's not my birthday." "Do I need a reason to give presents?" Emily considered that question seriously. "I guess not. But grown-ups usually need reasons for everything." Alex chuckled. "You're right. Maybe I'm learning to be less of a grown-up." The park was a few blocks away, centered around an artificial lake and a large playground. Although Alex had passed by it hundreds of times, he had never really noticed it. It was strange how the simplest things were invisible when they weren't part of your life. Samuel ran ahead the moment he spotted the swings, his laughter echoing like music. Emily, ever cautious, looked to her mother for permission before following him. "Go ahead," Luciana encouraged. "We'll be right there at that picnic table." Alex watched, enthralled, as Emily, usually so composed, suddenly let go. She chased Samuel, her braids bouncing, her laughter, a sound he had rarely heard, mingling with his. "It's the first time I've seen her really run," he commented, helping Luciana spread a cloth over the wooden table. "She rarely had the chance," Luciana replied, following her daughter with her eyes. "She was always too busy taking care of us." A note of sadness crept into her voice, the guilt Alex knew she carried despite his constant reassurances. "She's an amazing kid," he said. "You both are. Thanks to you, they can finally be just kids." Alex shook his head. "Not me. You're the one who kept them together, taught them to be strong when things were at their worst." Luciana opened the basket, avoiding his gaze. "You still haven't decided about Dubai, have you?" Her abrupt shift of topic took him off guard. "No. The final meeting is on Tuesday. What's holding you back?" Alex looked at the children playing. Samuel was now hanging upside down on a bar while Emily stood close, ready to catch him if he fell. "All of this," he said simply. "All of you." Luciana nodded, unsurprised. "What did you want before you met us? What drove you back then?" He paused. What had he wanted? Success, recognition, proof that he had transcended his origins, that he'd never again be the hungry, invisible boy. "I guess I wanted to prove something," he admitted, "mostly to myself." "And now?" Alex didn't answer immediately. Instead, he called the children over to open the small package Emily still carried. She carefully unwrapped it, revealing a professional watercolor set and a high-quality sketchbook. "Wow," she whispered, touching the paints reverently. "They look like the ones in my school's art room." "Your teacher told me you have real talent," Alex explained. "I thought you might like to explore it." Emily looked at him, her eyes shining with an emotion too big for her little body. She said nothing, just hugged him, brief but intense. It was the first truly spontaneous hug she had ever given him. "Let's paint the lake," Samuel exclaimed, already trying to open the paint box. "Easy, we should eat first," Luciana reminded him, smiling at his excitement. Their picnic felt like they were in a joyful bubble. Samuel devoured his sandwich in record time, anxious to get back to playing. Emily ate slowly, her eyes wandering to the new watercolor set. They talked about trivial things. Emily's classes, new words Samuel was learning, Luciana's volunteer work at the community center. At some point, Samuel asked to return to the swings. Alex offered to take him while Emily stayed behind to start painting. "Higher," Samuel yelled as Alex pushed the swing. "Higher, I want to touch the sky." Alex laughed, gently pushing. Samuel's face was pure happiness, eyes bright with the rush of flying ever higher. It was a perfect moment, one Alex knew he would always remember. After several minutes, Samuel hopped off and ran to see what Emily was painting. Alex stayed back a moment, watching the small family, his family in a way, gathered around the picnic table under a large leafy tree. Luciana stood up and walked toward him. She stopped by his side, both watching the children who were now focused on painting. Samuel was trying to mimic Emily's brushstrokes, creating colorful splotches on paper. "You never answered my question," she said softly. "What do you want now?" Alex looked at her face that had regained color and light in the past months, at eyes no longer filled with constant worry. "This," he replied simply. "Moments like this." Luciana smiled, a smile that lit her entire face. Then she said something that pierced deep into his soul. "You saved us, but you also let yourself be saved." Her words hovered between them, simple and true. Alex felt his eyes sting with unexpected tears. She was right. By reaching out to Luciana and the children, he had also allowed them to rescue him from loneliness, from emptiness, from the endless pursuit of something that would never fill the hole inside him. No reply was needed. In the quiet hush of that Sunday afternoon, with Samuel and Emily's laughter as a backdrop, both knew a truth had been acknowledged, one that could change everything. The office was silent at that early hour. Alex arrived before 7, wanting some solitude before the day began. The city outside was just waking up, lights flicking on as the sky gradually brightened. He sat at his desk and opened his laptop. The Dubai contract email was flagged as urgent, waiting for his digital signature. Next to it, on the glass tabletop, was a folder with the project details, sky-high financial projections, cutting-edge architectural designs, a list of international contacts who would be part of the team. Everything he had ever wanted professionally, just one click away. Alex opened the top drawer and took out a framed picture Emily had given him the previous week. It was a child's drawing of a yellow house with 4 figures holding hands out front. Emily, Samuel, Luciana, and Alex. "Our family," read the handwritten caption in bright, slightly uneven letters. For several minutes, he looked at that drawing, then at the computer screen, then back at the drawing. Images from the day at the park replayed in his mind, along with Luciana's words and Samuel's laughter, and Emily's sudden hug. At last, he opened a new email. Recipient: Philip Weber and the Board of Directors. Subject: Dubai Project. The message was concise, After careful consideration, I must decline the opportunity to lead the Harbour Gardens project in Dubai. I believe the firm will succeed with another project leader, and I am available to assist during the transition. My decision is personal and final. Thank you for the trust you have placed in me. Sincerely, Alex Harrison. He read it once. Then he clicked send. There was no hesitation in that final moment, no last-minute doubt, only a sense of relief, as if he had set down a heavy burden he'd been carrying for far too long. His phone rang less than 3 minutes later. Of course, it was Philip. "Alex, what the hell is this? Hell? You're joking, right?" "Good morning, Philip." Alex's voice was calm, calmer than he'd felt in weeks. "No, I'm not joking. Do you realize what you're throwing away? This project would put your name on the global map." "I understand the opportunity. I've just decided it's not the path I want." "Is this because of that little charity project of yours? For that family you adopted?" Philip's voice dripped disdain. "You can still do all that and lead in Dubai. Hire a team to run your community center. Pay someone to look after those people." Alex felt a surge of anger, but he kept it under control. "It doesn't work like that, Philip. And that's the point. You don't get it. So make me understand. We've worked together for almost 15 years. I've seen you sacrifice everything for success. Now, when it's finally within reach, you're turning your back on it." Alex glanced again at Emily's drawing. "I'm not turning my back on success. I'm redefining what success means to me." Silence hung on the line for a few seconds. "You're making the biggest mistake of your career," Philip said at last, calmer but still disbelieving. "Maybe," Alex replied. "Or maybe I'm avoiding the biggest mistake of my life." The office buzzed with shock when the news spread. Colleagues passed his doorway with puzzled looks. Some asked outright if he was ill or going through a crisis. The notion that anyone would voluntarily reject such an offer seemed incomprehensible there. Alex spent the day rearranging local projects and delegating responsibilities. At 5 o'clock, he gathered a few personal items, Emily's drawing, some photos, from his desk into a small box. "Are you quitting too?" asked Melissa, his assistant, her eyes wide. Alex smiled. "No, but I'm rethinking some priorities." When he arrived at Luciana's apartment that evening, he found it in a celebratory mood. Samuel ran to greet him at the door, jumping into his arms as usual. Emily followed, more composed but equally excited. "Here comes the man of the day," Luciana called from the kitchen, where the aroma of tomato sauce and spices drifted through the air. "What are we celebrating?" Alex asked, puzzled. "You," Emily answered, taking his hand. "Mom said you made a really important decision today." Alex gave Luciana a questioning look as she joined them, drying her hands on a dish towel. "How did you know?" he asked. "Dr. Martin called," she explained. "He said you turned down that big project and might need some support tonight, so we decided to have a little party." "A party? Because you're staying," Samuel shouted, though he didn't fully understand. "Mommy said you're staying with us." Alex felt something break inside him, not from sadness, but relief and gratitude for a moment he'd almost lost. "Yes," he managed, his voice husky with emotion. "I'm staying with you." Emily studied him with her knowing eyes. "Are you sad you're not going to that faraway place?" Alex knelt to her level. "No, Emily, I'm not sad. I'm exactly where I want to be." She nodded, as though confirming something she already knew. "We want you here too." Dinner was lively, with Samuel dominating the conversation, spinning wild tales of imaginary friends from daycare. Emily mentioned her new science book and how her teacher praised her solar system drawing. After the kids were in bed, Alex and Luciana sat on the small balcony, as they had done so many evenings before. "Are you sure you won't regret it?" she asked, gazing at the stars just visible between the buildings. "I'm sure," he replied without hesitation. "For the first time in a long while, I'm absolutely certain of a decision." Luciana smiled. "I never imagined that day at the grocery store would change our lives like this." "Neither did I," Alex admitted. "But I'm grateful it did." The following weeks brought subtler yet profound changes. Alex reorganized his work, so he had 2 free afternoons each week to devote to the community center. One of those afternoons, while he was sorting donated children's books, Luciana showed up unexpectedly. Samuel was at daycare and Emily at school. "I want to help," she announced. Not as someone who uses the center's services, but as an official volunteer. Alex stopped what he was doing. "Are you sure? You don't have to feel obligated." "I don't," she replied with fresh conviction. "Talking to other moms here, I realized my experience might help. I understand what they're going through in a way most volunteers can't." Alex observed how much she'd changed in recent months. The fragile, frightened woman he'd first met was slowly emerging as someone strong and self-assured. "That would be wonderful," he said sincerely. "They trust you here. I was thinking of starting a support group for single mothers," she went on enthusiastically, "a place where they can openly talk about their challenges without judgment and also provide practical help, navigating assistance programs, finding reliable daycare, that kind of thing." Alex smiled, genuinely proud. "That's an excellent idea. And I'm sure Elaine would love your help with educational programs too." "Do you really think I can contribute?" Luciana asked, a flicker of her old insecurity surfacing. "I think you're already contributing more than you realize," he answered. "Your story inspires people. It gives them hope." Paragraph intentionally skipped in the original text count, continuing with the numbering as presented. 2 weeks later, Luciana led her first group meeting. 6 mothers, all in situations similar to what she had faced, sat in a circle in the center's small back room. Alex watched from a distance, not wanting to interfere, and saw her thrive in this new role. "I'm not here as an expert," she began, "but as someone who's gone through what you're experiencing, who's still going through it in many ways, but I'm also proof things can get better." The women listened intently, some nodding in recognition. "A few months ago, I was living in a condemned building with no money for food, 2 sick children," Luciana went on. "The difference was, I found people who genuinely cared, and that's who I want to be for you now, someone who truly cares." Alex quietly slipped away, leaving her to guide the group in her own style. The pride he felt had nothing to do with control, but rather with witnessing someone channel her past pain into strength for others. The elementary school was 8 blocks from the apartment. Emily, now officially enrolled in 1st grade, gripped Alex's hand tightly on her first day. She had carefully chosen her outfit, a lilac dress with new white sneakers. "What if the other kids don't like me?" she asked for the 3rd time that morning. "They'll love you," Alex reassured her. "Just be yourself." "What if I don't know the answers, or they laugh at my hair?" Alex stopped and knelt down, looking her in the eyes. "Emily, you're the smartest and bravest person I know. You've faced things way harder than a first day of school. If anyone laughs at your hair, it's because they don't yet see how special you are." She nodded solemnly, absorbing his words. "Will you pick me up after?" "I'll be right here, at noon on the dot," he promised. When the bell rang, Emily hesitated briefly, then squared her shoulders and joined her class line. Before going inside, she turned back and waved one last time. Alex waved back, fighting a lump in his throat. The hours dragged. Though he had planned to go to the office, he ended up working remotely from a cafe near the school, unwilling to stray too far. By 11:45, he was at the gate, 15 minutes early. When the bell rang at noon, children poured out in lively groups. Emily was among the last, chatting with a girl with elaborate braids. To Alex's relief, her face wore a wide smile. "This is Zoe," Emily said when she reached the gate. "She has a rock collection and knows all the planets, even dwarf planets." "Hi, Zoe," Alex greeted, happy to see Emily making friends so soon. "Emily's dad is cool," Zoe declared with typical childlike candor. "My dad never picks me up from school." Before Alex could correct the misunderstanding, Emily said goodbye to her new friend, promising to bring her astronomy book the next day. "How was it?" he asked as they walked back. Emily thought for a moment with her usual seriousness. "It was fun. The teacher is nice, and there's a library right in the classroom. I can borrow books if I finish my work early." "That's wonderful," Alex said, genuinely pleased. "See? I told you it would be good." "You were right," Emily conceded, something she rarely did. and Zoe invited me to play at her house one day. She has a telescope. Samuel was building a tower of blocks when Alex and Luciana got home that evening. Emily immediately joined her brother, showing impressive patience in helping him. "Look, I made this for you," Samuel announced, handing Alex a crumpled paper with colorful scribbles vaguely resembling a human figure. "It's beautiful, Samuel," Alex praised, treating it with utmost seriousness. "Is that a self-portrait?" "No, silly," Samuel giggled. "It's you. See? Your hair is like this, and you're big and strong." "Oh, right. I see the resemblance now," Alex teased. "I'll keep it forever." Samuel grinned, satisfied, and went back to stacking blocks. After a few moments of intense concentration, he spoke without looking up. "Dad, can you help me build a taller tower? I can't reach." Time seemed to freeze. Alex glanced at Luciana, who looked as stunned as he felt. Samuel continued stacking blocks, unaware of the impact of that one word. "Sure, buddy," Alex finally answered, his voice catching slightly. "Let's build the tallest tower in the world." As he joined the children on the floor, Luciana laid a gentle hand on his shoulder. A simple gesture, but full of meaning. No words were needed. That night, helping Samuel with his tower, watching Emily draw a solar system chart to show her new friend, Alex felt certain he'd made the right choice. Dubai, the international project, global fame. None of it compared to what he'd found here in this little apartment, with this family that, by some miracle, had become his own. For the first time in his life, he wasn't chasing success. He realized success was already there, in Samuel's small hands offering him a block, in Emily's proud smile as she showed her homework, in Luciana's gaze that conveyed more than words ever could. He had stayed, and staying, he now understood, was the bravest and best decision he'd ever made. The kitchen calendar had a red circle drawn around October 17th. Samuel had insisted on marking it himself, using one of Luciana's pens, and making the circle so large it nearly covered the entire week. Emily's birthday, he had scrawled in shaky letters, proud of his newly learned writing skills. On that morning, Alex woke earlier than usual. He'd barely slept, tossing and turning with a sweet kind of anxiety, like a child on Christmas Eve. Emily's 7th birthday wasn't just a milestone for her. It also marked exactly 1 year since everything in his life had changed. 1 year since that cold morning when a little girl, far too young to be alone, had asked if she could pay for a carton of milk later because her baby brother was sick at home. He got up before dawn, quietly getting ready. He and Luciana had planned that he'd arrive before Emily was awake to help with the preparations. It would be a simple celebration, just family and a few school friends. Emily was adamant that she didn't want anything extravagant, only the people who truly mattered. The bakery was already open when Alex arrived to pick up the cake. He'd considered ordering something elaborate, maybe with a space theme, since Emily was currently fascinated by astronomy. But he remembered how she preferred simple, genuine things. So, he chose something more understated. A chocolate cake with white frosting, topped with a few blue sugar stars, her favorite. "For your daughter?" asked the baker, carefully placing the cake in a box. "Yes," Alex replied without hesitation. There was no awkwardness in that word now. "It's her birthday today." The apartment was quiet when he arrived, a little past 7. Luciana was already up, preparing a special breakfast. She wore a blue blouse Alex had recently given her, and her now longer hair was pulled back in a casual ponytail. "Good morning," she whispered with a smile. "They're still asleep." "I've got the cake," he whispered back, setting the box on the table. "It's simple, like we agreed." "Perfect," Luciana said, peeking inside. "She'll love it. And her school friends. They'll arrive after lunch. I thought it'd be nice to have some time just for us first." Us. That word felt natural now, comfortable. A makeshift family, built from pieces that shouldn't fit, but somehow formed something whole. Samuel was the first to wake, racing into the kitchen in his pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction. "Today's the day," he proclaimed, loud enough that Luciana had to gently hush him. "Shh, honey. Let your sister sleep a little longer. Come help us put up decorations." Samuel nodded, taking the mission seriously. With the grave focus of a 4-year-old, he helped hang colorful balloons and a banner spelling "Happy Birthday, Emily" in cut-out letters. Once everything was set, including the breakfast table, Luciana gave Samuel the honor of waking his sister. They heard his small footsteps racing down the hallway, followed by the muffled sound of him bursting into Emily's room. "Wake up! Wake up! It's your birthday!" Minutes later, Emily appeared at the kitchen door, practically dragged by Samuel. Her eyes, still sleepy, widened at the decorations. She seemed genuinely surprised, despite that big red circle on the calendar. "Happy birthday," Alex and Luciana said together. For a moment, Emily stood motionless, taking it all in. Then a slow smile bloomed, lighting up her entire face. This wasn't her usual polite smile, but something deeper, more authentic. "Thank you," she said, suddenly shy with all the attention. Breakfast turned into a little celebration. Luciana had made star-shaped pancakes, and Alex brought Emily's favorite fruit juice. They chatted about the friends who would arrive later and the presents she might receive. Emily ate with unusual gusto, her eyes darting occasionally to the decorations, as if she wanted to remember every detail. After breakfast, Alex gave her his gift, a hardcover set of astronomy books filled with detailed illustrations of constellations and planets. "For that future astronomer in you," he said as she reverently flipped through the pages. "They're beautiful," she breathed, pausing on an image of the Milky Way. "Thank you, Dad." The word was still new on her lips. Unlike Samuel, Emily had taken longer to use it, as though testing its weight and meaning before committing. Each time she said it, it felt deliberate, chosen. The morning passed peacefully. Emily read aloud from her new books to Samuel, who tried his best to pay attention to the explanations of black holes and dwarf stars, though he was clearly more drawn to the colorful pictures. The small party started after lunch. 6 of Emily's school friends showed up with their parents, carrying presents in bright wrapping paper. Among them was Zoe, now her best friend, who arrived with an oversized box containing a build-your-own solar system kit. They played games, laughed, and made the cheerful mess typical of children's parties. Alex watched Emily, no longer the solemn, burdened child he'd first met a year ago, but a girl who finally seemed comfortable in her own skin, who allowed herself to laugh out loud and run without constantly looking after others. When it was time for the cake, everyone gathered around the table. Luciana lit the 7 candles and handed Emily a handmade card decorated with carefully cut-out stars. "From all of us, with love," she said, kissing her daughter's forehead. Samuel, too excited to contain himself, leaned over the table for a better look, accidentally knocking a container of sprinkles onto the cake. "Samuel!" Luciana exclaimed, worried this might spoil the moment, but Emily just laughed. "It's even prettier now," she said, to everyone's relief. "More colors, like the Orion Nebula." Alex smiled at the reference to one of the chapters they'd read together that morning. After everyone finished singing Happy Birthday, Emily closed her eyes for a moment, clearly making a wish. Then, in one determined breath, she blew out all the candles, earning applause. "What did you wish for?" Samuel asked immediately, unable to curb his curiosity. "You can't tell," Zoe declared with authority, "or it won't come true." Emily grinned, a smile brimming with secrets and promises. While Luciana cut slices of cake, now creatively sprinkled, Emily looked directly at Alex. "It all started with milk, remember?" she said softly, her voice nearly lost in the excited chatter around them. But Alex heard it. He felt a lump form in his throat, remembering that cold morning, that tiny girl with a carton of milk, asking to pay later because her baby brother was sick at home. The moment that changed everything. He looked around, at Luciana plating the cake, at Samuel licking frosting from his fingers, at Emily's classmates chatting happily, at the cozy apartment that was now a real home. Then back to Emily, whose wise eyes waited for his answer. "I'll never forget," he said simply. Emily nodded, satisfied, as if she'd received the only confirmation she needed on her special day. She turned back to her friends, accepting their birthday wishes and plates of cake, rejoining the celebration. Alex stayed where he was for a moment, taking in the small miracle of the scene. A year ago, he was a solitary man in an empty life. Now he stood here, surrounded by laughter, the chaos of a children's birthday party and love, all because of a carton of milk. All because, for the first time in his adult life, he had stopped to listen to the small voice of someone who needed help. And in doing so, he had found more than he'd ever given. He had found a family, a home, a purpose. Some called it fate, others called it coincidence. To Alex, the name didn't matter. What mattered was that he was exactly where he needed to be. And as he had promised Emily, he would never ever forget. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next ones. Leave a like because it helps this story get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.